The chandeliers of the Scottsdale Desert Arts Foundation gala gleamed like golden suns above the polished marble hall. This was supposed to be another night of smiling through gritted teeth, of blending into the background while my sister basked in the spotlight. I never imagined it would be the night everything changed, the night when years of quiet dignity would finally speak louder than wealth and status. My name is Alyssa Hayes. I'm not rich or glamorous. I'm just a high school art teacher with secondhand furniture and dreams bigger than my paycheck. But for 29 years, I've lived in the shadow of my sister Vanessa, the golden child, the family star, the one who married into wealth and never let anyone forget it. That night at the gala, as I watched her ascend those marble steps, to the podium in her shimmering silver gown, diamond bracelet catching the light, I had no idea I was about to witness the collapse of her carefully crafted empire. I didn't know that after years of being the family doormat, I would finally find my voice in the most public way possible. And I certainly didn't expect that the truth, contained in a single folded document in my clutch, would change. Everything in the space of one breathless evening. This is my story. The invitation arrived on heavy cream cardstock, embossed with gold lettering. The Scottsdale Desert Arts Foundation Annual Benefactors Gala. Below it, a handwritten note in my sister's perfect calligraphy. Alyssa, I need you there. Family duty. Wear something appropriate. I sighed, running my fingers over the expensive paper. Another command disguised as a request. Another evening of playing supporting character in the Vanessa Hayes show. But family is family, right? That's what I'd been telling myself for years. My apartment felt especially small that evening as I slipped into the only formal dress I owned, a simple black sheath I'd bought 3 years ago for our father's funeral. It hung a little looser now. I'd lost weight from the stress of end-of-year student evaluations. In my bathroom mirror, I applied mascara and a touch of lipstick, wondering if anyone would notice me anyway. The desert sunset painted the sky in shades of amber and rose as I drove my 10-year-old Honda to Scottsdale. The transformation from my Phoenix neighborhood to Vanessa's world was always jarring. From modest apartment, complexes, and family restaurants to gated estates and exclusive boutiques. By the time I reached the Arts Center, stars were emerging above the jagged silhouette of Camelback Mountain. Valets in crisp white shirts swarmed around Bentleys and Maseratis. I handed my keys to a young man who couldn't hide his surprise at my vehicle. It's around back, right? I joked weakly. He smiled politely, but his eyes had already moved to the Rolls-Royce pulling up behind me. The grand ballroom glittered with excess. Crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, arrangements of exotic flowers that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Television crews positioned themselves strategically, while photographers captured Phoenix's elite in their designer finery. Waiters circulated with champagne and canapes that looked too artistic to eat. Alyssa! Finally! My sister's voice cut through the ambient chatter. Vanessa floated toward me, a vision in silver sequins that hugged her slender figure, and the slight bump at her midsection. Her dark hair was swept into an elaborate updo, diamonds dripping from her ears and wrists. "You're late," she said, air-kissing both my cheeks. "And really? That dress again? I could have lent you something." "Hello to you too, Vanessa." I forced a smile. The invitation said 7, and it's only 10 after. She waved dismissively. "Jason's already networking with the Carmichaels. They're considering a major donation to the children's wing." She lowered her voice. "He says if tonight goes well, we might get the naming rights." Of course. The Turner family children's wing, another bronze plaque to immortalize their generosity. "That's great," I said automatically. "Can I help with anything?" Her eyes lit up, not with gratitude, but with opportunity. "Actually, yes. The centerpieces at Table 9 need adjusting, and could you check if the silent auction displays are properly labeled? Oh, and later, I might need you to say a few words about how the foundation helped your students last year." I nodded, swallowing my frustration. This was the pattern. Vanessa shining on stage while I adjusted flower arrangements in the background. I'd been playing this role since childhood, when she was the ballet recital star and I was the one helping Mom sew costumes. As I moved through the crowd toward Table 9, I spotted Jason, tall, broad-shouldered, with the confident stance of someone who's never worried about money. His tailored tuxedo probably cost more than my car. He was chatting with an older couple, his hand gesturing expansively as if painting the future on air. "Alyssa," he called when he saw me. "Come meet the Carmichaels." I smoothed my dress and approached, offering my hand to the silver-haired couple. "It's lovely to meet you. I've heard so much about your philanthropy." Mrs. Carmichael smiled warmly. Jason was just telling us you're a teacher. How wonderful. What grade? High school art, I replied, at Phoenix Central. Challenging neighborhood, Mr. Carmichael commented with raised eyebrows. The kids are amazing, I said firmly. Talented and resilient. The Foundation's grant last year helped us fund a mural project that really transformed part of the campus. Jason's arm wrapped around my shoulders, a gesture that might have seemed brotherly to observers, but felt possessive to me. Alyssa's too modest. She's worked miracles with those kids. Some have even gotten college scholarships. I fought the urge to step away from his touch. Jason had always been overly familiar, and something in his gaze sometimes made me uncomfortable. But Vanessa never noticed, or chose not to. Will you excuse us? Jason smiled at the Carmichaels. I need to steal my sister-in-law for a moment. He guided me toward a quieter corner near the bar. Vanessa has an announcement tonight, he said, voice low. A surprise for the donors. My stomach tightened. What kind of surprise? You'll see. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Just make sure you look appropriately supportive, family unity, and all that. Before I could press further, the lights dimmed slightly, and the foundation director approached the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd please take your seats, dinner will be served momentarily. And after the first course, we have a special announcement from our event chair, Mrs. Vanessa Turner. I found my assigned seat at a table near the stage, close enough to be family, but not at the VIP table where Vanessa and Jason sat with the major donors and a local news anchor. As servers placed delicate plates of seared scallops before us, I noticed Vanessa whispering excitedly to the women at her table, their eyes widening, hands clasping in apparent delight. My table mates were minor donors and foundation, staff who knew me only as Vanessa's sister. They made polite conversation about the weather, the upcoming election, the latest restaurant openings in Scottsdale. I nodded and smiled at appropriate intervals, but my attention kept drifting to Vanessa, radiant under the lights, touching her stomach in a gesture that suddenly seemed significant. After the first course, the foundation director returned to the microphone. It is my great pleasure to introduce our event chair, a woman whose tireless efforts have raised over $2 million for arts education in underserved communities. Please welcome Mrs. Vanessa Turner. Applause rippled through the room as my sister rose gracefully and glided to the stage, her sequined gown catching the light with every step. Camera flashes popped around the room. A television camera swiveled to capture her ascent. Thank you all for being here tonight, she began, her voice practiced and smooth. Your generosity continues to transform lives through the power of art. But tonight, I'm thrilled to share some personal news that reflects the Foundation's mission of creating new beginnings. She paused dramatically, one manicured hand resting on her stomach. Jason and I are delighted to announce that baby number 5 is on the way, another heir to carry the Turner and Hayes legacies forward. The room erupted in applause and exclamations. Flashbulbs exploded. Jason stood, raising his champagne flute in acknowledgement. And then, she looked directly at me, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. And as always, Alyssa will help raise this one too. After all, she has nothing else to do with her life. Laughter rippled uncomfortably through the audience. I felt blood rush to my face as every eye turned toward me. The room seemed to tilt slightly, my breath catching in my throat. In that moment, something inside me, something that had bent and bent for years without breaking, finally snapped. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping loudly against the marble floor. Without a word, I stood, gathered my clutch, and walked steadily toward the exit, heels clicking in the sudden silence. Behind me, I heard Vanessa's voice, suddenly uncertain. Alyssa, where are you going? I didn't turn around. I didn't run. I simply walked, spine straight, eyes forward, out of that glittering cage of humiliation and into the cool desert. Night. The night air hit my face like a wave of clarity. Stars blazed overhead in that special way they do in the desert, distant and indifferent to human dramas. I inhaled deeply, trying to steady myself as I approached the valet stand. Ms. Hayes? The young attendant looked concerned. Are you leaving already? The event just started. Yes, I managed, handing him my ticket. I need to go. He nodded and spoke into his radio. As I waited, the enormity of what I'd just done began to sink in. I'd walked out on a major charity event. I'd embarrassed Vanessa in front of Phoenix society, donors, media. There would be consequences. There always were when someone disrupted Vanessa's perfect narrative. But for once, I didn't care. I was fumbling in my clutch for a tip when the ballroom doors burst open behind me. Vanessa emerged, Jason close behind, her face flushed with anger beneath the perfect makeup. "How dare you?" she hissed, striding toward me. "You humiliated me in front of everyone." I stood my ground. "I humiliated you? After what you just said about me on stage?" "It was a joke, Alyssa. God, you've always been so sensitive." She glanced around, noticing the valet attendants, trying to appear busy while obviously listening. "Get back inside. We'll discuss this later." "There's nothing to discuss. I'm going home." Jason stepped forward, placing a hand on my arm. "Alyssa, be reasonable. The Carmichaels are asking about you. Your dramatic exit is creating a scene." I pulled away from his touch. "I'm sorry if my dignity is inconvenient for your networking." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "This isn't about dignity. It's about the same thing it's always been with you: jealousy. You've always resented my success, my family, my life." A bitter laugh escaped me. "Success? Is that what you call it? Living off Dad's money until you burned through it? Then marrying into more? Parading around charity events while your nannies and your sister raise your children?" Her face contorted with rage. "How dare you after everything we've done for you?" "What exactly have you done for me, Vanessa? Made me feel small? Used me as free childcare? Mocked me in public?" Jason stepped between us. "Ladies, this isn't the place." But Vanessa was beyond caring about appearances now. "You ungrateful little bitch," she spat. "You think you're so righteous with your modest teachers. Life, your moral high ground. But I know the truth." "What truth?" I challenged. "About the money." Her voice rose. "Dad's trust fund. You think I don't know what you've been doing with it?" The valet pulled up with my Honda, looking desperately uncomfortable. I ignored him, focusing on my sister's flushed face. "What are you talking about?" "The family trust. You've been siphoning funds for years. Did you think I wouldn't notice?" I stared at her, genuinely shocked. "That's ridiculous. I've only used my share, for Mom's medical bills, for basics. You're the one who blew through yours on sports cars and designer closets." "Liar!" she shrieked. Several people had emerged from the ballroom now, drawn by the commotion. "I have proof." "What proof?" "There can't be any because it never happened." The escalating argument had drawn more attention. Foundation board members and donors clustered at the entrance, watching with a mixture of concern and fascination. A photographer hovered nearby, camera raised. And then, the wail of sirens in the distance, growing louder. Vanessa's expression shifted from rage to something like triumph. Right on time. "What did you do?" I asked, a chill creeping up my spine despite the warm evening. She didn't answer, but the approaching red and blue lights reflected in her eyes told me everything. As two police cruisers pulled into the circular drive, Jason moved to Vanessa's side, his arm around her waist, united against me. The officers approached, one young and tense, the other older, with a weary expression that suggested he'd seen too. Many family disputes among the wealthy. "Is there a problem here?" the older officer asked. Before I could speak, Vanessa stepped forward dramatically. "Officer, I want to press charges against my sister. She's been stealing from our family trust fund, embezzling money that should have gone to my children." The crowd gasped. Phones emerged to record the scene. The young officer's hand moved, instinctively toward his belt. "That's a serious accusation, ma'am," the older officer said. "Do you have evidence?" "My financial advisor has the documents," Jason interjected smoothly. "We can provide them tomorrow. But tonight we need her detained before she destroys evidence or attempts to transfer more funds." My heart hammered in my chest. "This is absurd. I haven't stolen anything." I turned to the officers. "They're lying. I can prove it." The younger officer moved closer to me. "Ma'am, we'll need you to come with us to sort this out." "Wait." My voice was steadier than I felt. "I have documentation, right here." I opened my clutch and pulled out the folded papers I'd been carrying for months, ever since I'd first heard whispers about financial irregularities. The document that our father's lawyer, Matthew Cole, had provided when Vanessa began making insinuations among family friends. The certified copy of our father's testament, with attached financial records showing exactly how each sister had managed her inheritance. I handed it to the older officer. "This is a certified copy of my father's will and the trust disbursement records. You'll see that we each received, equal shares. And you'll also see who spent what." The officer unfolded the papers, scanning them carefully. The younger officer peered over his shoulder. "These appear to be legitimate legal documents," the older officer said finally. According to this, both sisters received equal distributions from the Hayes family trust 3 years ago. He looked up at Vanessa. And according to these bankruptcies records, Mrs. Turner's share was fully withdrawn within 36 months of distribution. The crowd had grown. Foundation board members, donors, and even waitstaff watched the drama unfold. Camera flashes popped in the background. "That's impossible," Vanessa sputtered, her confidence wavering. "She must have falsified those records." "The documents are certified by your father's estate attorney," the officer replied. "There's a notary seal and verification codes that can be checked." Jason stepped forward. "Officer, this is a family matter that shouldn't be handled in public. If you'd just escort Alyssa downtown, we can sort this out properly." "I don't think that will be necessary, sir," the older officer interrupted. "Based on these documents, there's no evidence of any crime. This appears to be a civil matter at most, possibly just a misunderstanding." Whispers rippled through the crowd. I saw the exact moment when Vanessa realized what was happening, that her attempt to humiliate and criminalize me had backfired spectacularly. Her face paled beneath her makeup, her eyes darting to the watching donors, the filming phones, the news camera that had emerged from inside. But she, Vanessa stammered. The older officer handed the documents back to me. "Ms. Hayes, you're free to go. Sorry for the inconvenience." "Thank you, officer," I said quietly, returning the papers to my clutch. As the police turned to leave, I faced my sister one last time. Her perfect image was crumbling before my eyes, mascara smudged, face contorted with rage and humiliation. Jason stood beside her, his expression calculating as he assessed the damage to their social standing. "Why did you have those papers with you?" Vanessa hissed. "You planned this." I shook my head sadly. "No, Vanessa. I've been carrying them for protection ever since you started spreading rumors. I just never thought you'd go this far." The valet approached hesitantly with my car keys. I took them, then turned back to the gathered crowd. "I apologize for the disruption," I said clearly. "Please enjoy the rest of the gala. The foundation does important work for students like mine." Then I slid into my Honda and drove away, leaving behind the chandeliers, the whispers, and the shattered facade of my sister's perfect life. In my rearview mirror, I could see Vanessa still standing in the driveway, frozen in the glare of camera flashes, her empire of privilege collapsing around her like a house of cards. The desert highway stretched before me, a ribbon of darkness punctuated by the rhythmic flash of streetlights. My hands trembled on the steering wheel as adrenaline gave way to exhaustion. The radio played softly, something classical, strings and piano intertwining in minor keys that matched my mood. I didn't go straight home. Instead, I drove to Papago Park, parked near the Desert Botanical Garden, and sat on the hood of my car, looking out at the silhouettes of the buttes against the night sky. The city lights shimmered in the distance like fallen stars. My phone buzzed relentlessly. First Vanessa, then Jason, then friends who'd been at the gala, and finally, reporters. I silenced it without reading the messages. Whatever hurricane was swirling in my wake, I needed this moment of stillness before facing it. "Well, Dad," I whispered to the desert air. I finally stood up to her. "Are you proud?" Our father had been gone for 3 years now. A quiet, dignified man who made his fortune in real estate development, but never flaunted his wealth. He'd loved both his daughters equally, at least on paper. But Vanessa had always been his little princess, while I was his sensible girl. He'd split his estate evenly between us, perhaps hoping it would finally balance the scales. Around midnight, I finally drove home to my apartment in Phoenix. The complex was quiet, units dark except for the occasional blue flicker of late-night television. Inside, I kicked off my heels, unzipped my dress, and stood under the shower until the hot water ran cold, letting it wash away the evening's tensions. Sleep eluded me. I sat on my small balcony with a cup of tea, watching the sky lighten from black to indigo to pale lavender. By dawn, I'd made a decision. I wouldn't hide. I wouldn't apologize. I would face whatever came next with the same quiet dignity I'd tried to maintain all my life. My phone showed 27 missed calls, 43 text messages, and 16 emails. I ignored them all and opened my laptop instead. The local news websites told the story in sensational headlines. Society scandal, heiress accuses sister of theft, police reveal shocking twist. Desert Arts Gala erupts in family drama as Turner fortune questioned. Vanessa Turner's public meltdown. The truth behind the society. Darling's accusations. Each article featured photos, Vanessa on stage announcing her pregnancy. Me walking out. The confrontation outside. Police examining documents. My simple black dress and minimal makeup contrasted sharply with Vanessa's silver sequins and perfect contouring, an unintentional visual metaphor for our different approaches to life. Most reports were careful to state that no charges had been filed, but quoted sources close to the family about the trust fund details. One particularly thorough piece had even contacted Matthew Cole, Dad's lawyer, who confirmed that both sisters had received equal shares but declined to comment on how they'd been spent. Around 8, my principal called. I braced for professional fallout, gossip. Involving police rarely helped a teaching career. Alyssa, are you all right? Mrs. Patel's voice was warm with concern. I saw the news. I'm fine, I assured her. Just embarrassed that my family drama went public. It won't affect my classroom, I promise. That's not why I'm calling, she said. I'm calling because I care about you, and because 3 news vans are parked outside the school. Asking for comments about our heroic art teacher. I groaned. Heroic? Mrs. Patel, I just defended myself. Well, the narrative they're spinning is that you're some kind of working-class hero standing up to privileged excess. The morning shows want interviews. I don't want attention, I said firmly. I just want to teach my classes. Take Monday off, she suggested. Let things cool down. I'll handle the press. After hanging up, I made coffee and toast, performing the ritual of normalcy, even as my life spiraled into the surreal. My neighbor Sophia knocked around 9, newspaper in hand. You're famous, she exclaimed, pushing past me into the apartment. Why didn't you tell me your sister was such a piece of work? It's complicated, I sighed, pouring her coffee. We don't usually air our family problems on the 11 o'clock news. Well, people are talking. The moms at my daughter's soccer practice couldn't stop gossiping about it. They're all Team Alyssa. I winced. There shouldn't be teams. This isn't a reality show. Honey, when there are police and news cameras at a charity gala, it's better than a reality show. She squeezed my hand. But seriously, are you okay? I will be, I said, surprising myself with how true it felt. For the first time in years, I actually think I will be. Later that afternoon, a florist delivered a modest arrangement of desert wildflowers. The card read simply, "You handled yourself with grace. If you need legal advice, call me. Matthew Cole." He'd attached his personal number. I set the flowers on my coffee table, oddly touched by the gesture from my father's lawyer. My phone continued to buzz. I finally answered a call from my mother, now living in a senior community in Tucson. Alyssa, what on earth is happening? Her voice quavered with age and anxiety. The Wilsons showed me the newspaper. There's a picture of you and Vanessa fighting. I took a deep breath. Mom, Vanessa said some hurtful things at the gala. I left, and she overreacted. She's saying you stole money from the trust fund, and I proved I didn't. That's the end of it. My mother sighed. I always told your father that giving you girls so much money at once would cause problems. Money changes people. It doesn't have to, I said quietly. Dad trusted us to use it wisely. Well, Vanessa's always been impulsive with finances, but to accuse you publicly, what was she thinking? I considered various diplomatic responses, but finally settled on honesty. I think she was projecting, Mom. She spent her share, and rather than admit it, she convinced herself I must have taken it. I should call her, Mom murmured. She must be devastated by the embarrassment. Always Vanessa's feelings first. Some patterns never changed. Do what you think is right? I said neutrally. I love you, Mom. After hanging up, I changed into jeans and a sweater and drove to the small coffee shop where I graded papers each weekend. The barista did a double take when I walked in but said nothing beyond taking my order. I settled at my usual corner table with student portfolios and a latte, determined to maintain normalcy. I'd graded 3 projects when a shadow fell across my table. Looking up, I saw Jason, impeccably dressed in casual designer wear that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Can we talk? He asked, his voice low. I don't think we have anything to discuss. He sat anyway, leaning forward. Vanessa is devastated, Alyssa. Absolutely shattered. The media is making her out to be some kind of villain. And what am I supposed to do about that? Issue a joint statement. Say it was all a misunderstanding, that emotions ran high, that you both regret the public nature of the disagreement. I set down my pen. It wasn't a disagreement, Jason. She accused me of a crime, in public, in front of cameras, when she knew perfectly well I'd done nothing wrong. She was upset. You embarrassed her by walking out during her announcement. Her announcement included publicly humiliating me. Jason waved dismissively. It was a joke. No, I said firmly. It wasn't. And neither was calling the police. He glanced around, lowering his voice further. Look, the foundation board is meeting tomorrow to discuss whether Vanessa should continue as event chair. The Carmichaels are reconsidering their donation. This could seriously damage our standing in the community. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I understand your concern, I said carefully, but I won't lie to protect Vanessa's reputation. What do you want? He asked bluntly. Money? A better apartment? We can arrange something discreetly. The offer struck me like a physical blow. I don't want your money. Everyone wants something. Alyssa. I wanted respect, I said, gathering my papers. From my sister, from you. But clearly that was asking too much. I stood, throwing a $5 bill on the table for my unfinished coffee. Don't contact me again, Jason. Whatever relationship Vanessa and I have going forward, it won't include you as a mediator. As I walked away, he called after me. This isn't over, Alyssa. I didn't look back. He was right about one thing, though. It wasn't over. The tremors from last night's earthquake were still rippling outward, reshaping the landscape of my life in ways I couldn't yet imagine. Monday morning brought rain, unusual for Phoenix in autumn. I sat at my kitchen table watching droplets race down the window, grateful for the day off. Despite my determination to maintain normalcy, I felt drained, as if the confrontation had depleted some essential reserve of energy. The media frenzy continued. My story had expanded beyond local news, picked up by national outlets as a human interest piece, the humble teacher versus the socialite sister. Social media buzzed with hot takes and hashtags. Some lifestyle blog had even analyzed our outfits as representations of our moral characters. It was exhausting, intrusive, and utterly surreal. Around 10, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Is this Alyssa Hayes? A woman's voice, professional but warm. Yes. Who's calling? This is Elena Rodriguez from Phoenix Arts Alliance. I'm the director of community outreach. She paused. I was at the gala on Saturday. My stomach tightened. Oh, I'm not calling about that. Well, not directly, she clarified quickly. I've been meaning to contact you about your students' mural project. The foundation funded it last year, but the Alliance would like to expand similar programs across Phoenix schools. I sat straighter, professional interest peaked despite my wariness. That's exactly the kind of initiative my students would benefit from. Would you be willing to meet to discuss a potential citywide program? Your expertise would be invaluable. I hesitated, suspecting an ulterior motive. Ms. Rodriguez, is this offer related to what happened at the gala? She sighed. I won't pretend I didn't witness what occurred, but truthfully, I've been following your work since the spring student exhibition. The incident simply reminded me that I'd been meaning to reach out. We arranged to meet later that week. After hanging up, I felt a flicker of optimism. The first since Saturday night. Whatever personal chaos swirled around me, my work still mattered. My students still mattered. The doorbell rang just as I was fixing lunch. Through the peephole, I saw a courier holding an envelope. I opened the door. Cautiously. Delivery for Alyssa Hayes, he said, handing me a heavy cream envelope with a law firm's embossed letterhead. Inside was a letter from Matthew Cole, requesting a meeting at my earliest convenience to discuss matters pertaining to the Hayes Family Trust. His handwritten note at the bottom read, "Nothing to worry about, just clarifying some details to prevent further misunderstandings." I called the number he'd provided with the flowers. "Matthew Cole," he answered on the second ring. "Mr. Cole, it's Alyssa Hayes. I received your letter. Alyssa, thank you for calling. And please, it's Matthew." His voice was exactly as I remembered from the reading of Dad's will. Steady, measured, trustworthy. Is something wrong with the trust? Not at all. But in light of, recent events, I think it would be prudent to review the documentation more thoroughly, perhaps set up some additional safeguards. I sank onto the couch. I'm sorry about the scene at the gala. I never meant for Dad's will to become public spectacle. You have nothing to apologize for, he said firmly. You were defending yourself against false accusations. I only wish I'd been more proactive. When you first mentioned Vanessa's insinuations, we arranged to meet at his office on Tuesday afternoon. I felt reassured knowing that at least one person connected to my father still had my best interests at heart. The rest of the day passed quietly. I prepped lesson plans, answered emails from concerned colleagues, and tried to ignore the occasional car that slowed down in front of my apartment building, probably hoping to catch a glimpse of the suddenly notorious Alyssa Hayes. As evening approached, my phone lit up with a call from an unexpected source, Vanessa's oldest child, my 13-year-old niece Lily. "Aunt Alyssa?" Her voice was small, uncertain. "Are you mad at us too?" My heart constricted. In the drama with Vanessa, I hadn't considered how the children might be affected. "No, sweetheart, not at all," I assured her. "I could never be mad at you or your brothers or sister." "Mom won't stop crying," Lily confided. "Dad keeps having meetings with people on the phone. Nobody will tell us what's happening, but kids at school were saying stuff." I closed my eyes, picturing her confused face. "Your mom and I had a disagreement, Lily. Adult stuff about money and family, but none of it has anything to do with you kids. Will you still come to my recital next week?" The question brought tears to my eyes. I'd helped Lily practice her violin pieces for months, driving to Scottsdale twice weekly for informal lessons. "Of course I will," I promised. Nothing could keep me away. "Mom might not want you there," she whispered. "Then I'll talk to her," I said, with more confidence than I felt. Family is still family, even when we're upset with each other. After reassuring her a little longer, I hung up and stared at the ceiling, conflicted. Part of me wanted to maintain the clean break from Vanessa's toxic presence. But another part, the part that had helped raise those children, bandaged their knees, celebrated their birthdays, couldn't imagine walking away. Completely. I was still pondering this when my phone rang again. This time, it was Vanessa herself. For several seconds, I just stared at her name on the screen, thumb hovering over the answer button. What could she possibly say that wouldn't make things worse? What apology could erase the public humiliation, the false accusations, the years of subtle degradation? But curiosity won out. I answered, with a neutral hello. Silence stretched between us, punctuated only by the sound of her breathing. Then finally, "You talked to Lily." Not a question, not an apology, just a statement, tinged with accusation. "She called me," I clarified. "She was upset." "I suppose you told her all about how terrible her mother is." "Of course not. I would never put her in the middle of our problems." Another silence. I waited, determined not to fill it with nervous chatter or premature forgiveness. "The foundation board asked me to step down," she finally said, her voice tight. "The Carmichaels withdrew their donation. The Peninsula Women's Club uninvited me from their luncheon series." I said nothing. What was there to say? These were the natural consequences of her actions. "Aren't you going to gloat?" she demanded. "You've finally got what you wanted. My life is falling apart while everyone praises Saint Alyssa. I never wanted this, Vanessa. I just wanted to be treated with respect." "Respect?" She laughed bitterly. "You walked out during my pregnancy announcement, embarrassed me in front of everyone, and now you're playing the victim. How is that respectful?" I took a deep breath, reminding myself that engaging with her distorted perspective was pointless. "I walked out because you publicly mocked me. You called the police and accused me of theft. If anyone disrespected our relationship, it was you. You always twist everything," she cried. "All my life you've been judging me, resenting me, waiting for me to fail. And now you've made it happen. Are you satisfied?" The familiar pattern of Vanessa's emotional manipulation unfolded right on cue. The accusations, the victimhood, the refusal to take responsibility. For decades, I'd played my part, apologizing, placating, surrendering to keep the peace. Not anymore. "Vanessa," I said quietly, "I don't want to argue. I called Lily back because I care about her, about all your children. I told her I'll be at her recital. But if you'd rather I stay away, I'll respect that decision. So now you're turning my children against me too? That's not what I said. And you know it." I sighed. "Look, I'm willing to work towards some kind of civil relationship for the kids' sake. But it has to start with honesty about what happened." "Fine," she snapped. "You want honesty? I'm pregnant. My reputation is in tatters. My children are confused, and my own sister betrayed me. Is that honest enough for you?" Before I could respond, she hung up. I set down my phone, feeling drained but oddly relieved. For the first time, I'd held my ground without compromising my truth. It wasn't a victory. There was too much pain on both sides for that. But perhaps it was a first step towards something healthier than what we'd had before. Outside, the rain had stopped. A stripe of amber light cut through the clouds at the horizon. Not quite a rainbow, but a promise that even the darkest storms eventually pass. Tuesday afternoon found me in the financial district of downtown Phoenix, entering a sleek high-rise that housed Cole & Associates. The receptionist recognized my name immediately, her eyes widening slightly before she composed her professional smile. "Mr. Cole is expecting you, Ms. Hayes. May I offer you coffee while you wait? Water would be fine, thank you." I settled into a leather chair in the waiting area, taking in the understated elegance of the space. Tasteful art, muted colors, discreet displays of legal credentials. It was the kind of refinement that spoke of old money rather than new flash. No wonder. My father had trusted Matthew Cole with his affairs. 5 minutes later, Cole himself appeared in the doorway. Tall and trim in his early 60s, silver hair contrasting with his tailored navy suit. He greeted me warmly, escorting me to a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "Thank you for coming, Alyssa. I know this must be a difficult time." I smiled wryly. "That's putting it mildly." He gestured to the chairs. "I've reviewed all the trust documentation in detail. Your father was extremely methodical, which serves us well now." "I appreciate your thoroughness," I said, "but I'm not sure what more needs to be done." The police seemed satisfied with the paperwork I showed them. Cole nodded, opening a leather portfolio. "The police, yes, but there may be other challenges ahead. Your sister's accusations, while demonstrably false, could potentially lead to civil litigation. I want to ensure you're fully protected." My stomach tightened. "You think Vanessa might sue me?" "I think your brother-in-law has significant resources and a vested interest in protecting his wife's reputation," Cole said carefully. "Litigation, even baseless litigation, can be used as a pressure tactic." He slid a document across the table. "This is a complete accounting of the Hayes family trust from its creation through final disbursement. You'll see that each daughter received exactly $2.3 million upon your father's passing. The trust was then dissolved, with individual beneficiaries taking personal ownership of their shares." I scanned the document, noting the precision of the figures, the clarity of the timeline. "This matches what I understood. Now," Cole continued, "this second document tracks what happened to those funds afterwards." He passed me another paper. "Your sister's withdrawal pattern was aggressive. Designer purchases, real estate investments that quickly soured, an unfortunate venture into restaurant ownership, and several high-interest loans to friends who never repaid her." The columns of numbers told a stark story of financial impulsivity. Within 18 months, Vanessa had depleted over 75% of her inheritance. By the 3-year mark, it was gone. "And this," Cole said, producing a third document, "is the record of your portion." My financial history appeared far more modest. Payments for our mother's assisted aid, living facility, retirement account contributions, student loan payoffs, and a sensible emergency fund. Nearly half of my inheritance remained untouched in low-risk investments. "As you can see," Cole concluded, "the records clearly demonstrate that you managed your inheritance responsibly. There's no evidence whatsoever of impropriety." I set down the papers, feeling strangely hollow. It's all so clear on paper. Why couldn't Vanessa just admit what happened? Cole's expression softened. "In my 40 years of estate practice, I've observed that money rarely just represents money. For some people, it's a measure of worth, of success, of parental approval." "Dad always loved Vanessa more," I said, the admission slipping out before I could stop it. Or at least it felt that way. She was his princess, his legacy. I was just reliable. Cole looked surprised. That wasn't my impression of Richard Hayes at all. When we drafted his will, he spoke of both his daughters with equal pride. "Really?" Cole nodded. "He specifically mentioned your compassion, your integrity. He worried that Vanessa might struggle with financial responsibility, but he admired your steadiness." The revelation stunned me. All these years, I'd assumed Dad's equal division of assets was mere fairness, not an expression of equal esteem. "What happens now?" I asked, refocusing on the present. "Do I need to worry about lawsuits?" "I've prepared a cease and desist letter addressing any future defamatory statements about your financial conduct," Cole said, sliding another document forward. "It outlines the evidence we possess and the potential consequences of continued false accusations." "That sounds aggressive." "It's protective, not punitive. You shouldn't have to live under a cloud of suspicion." Cole leaned forward. "Alyssa, there's something else I should mention. Your father included a personal letter with his will, one for each daughter. I delivered Vanessa's directly, but you were traveling when the will was executed, so yours went into the trust documentation. He withdrew an envelope from his portfolio, the paper slightly yellowed with age. My father's distinctive handwriting spelled out my name. I assumed you'd received this years ago, Cole said apologetically. It was only when reviewing the complete file that I discovered my oversight. My fingers trembled slightly as I accepted the envelope. Thank you for finding it. Would you like privacy to read it? I nodded, suddenly unable to speak around the lump in my throat. Cole excused himself, and I carefully opened the seal, unfolding 2 pages of my father's bold handwriting. My dearest Alyssa, if you're reading this, I've left this world for whatever comes next. I hope I had the chance to say a proper goodbye, but if not, please know that you brought immeasurable joy to my life from the moment you were born. You were always different from Vanessa. Quieter, more thoughtful, less demanding of attention. Sometimes I worried that you might interpret this as me loving you less. Nothing could be further from the truth. I've divided my estate equally between my daughters not out of mere fairness, but because I genuinely believe in both of you equally. I trust you to use your portion wisely, as you've always shown wisdom beyond your years. Vanessa will likely spend her inheritance quickly. It's in her nature to live lavishly. You may find yourself in situations where she looks to you for financial rescue. Remember that sometimes the most loving thing we can do is allow others to face the consequences of their choices. This is a lesson I perhaps failed to teach her adequately during my lifetime. My only regret as a father is that I may have relied too heavily on your strength, your independence. I never wanted to burden you, but I fear I may have taken you for granted while focusing on Vanessa's more vocal needs. Know this. I have always seen you, Alyssa. Your quiet, dignity, your resilience, your compassion for others, these qualities make you exceptional. Never doubt your worth, and never measure yourself against anyone else's standards of success. I love you immeasurably. Dad tears streamed down my face as I finished reading. All these years I'd carried the weight of perceived inequality, of being the less favored daughter. And all this time, my father had seen me clearly, had valued precisely the qualities I thought went unnoticed. When Cole returned, I had composed myself somewhat, though my eyes remained red. Are you all right? He asked gently. Yes, I answered, surprising myself with how true it felt. Better than I've been in a long time, actually. As we concluded our meeting, Cole walked me to the elevator. If you need anything else, legal, advice, financial guidance, or just someone to talk to who knew your father well, please don't hesitate to call. Thank you, Matthew, for everything. As the elevator descended, I clutched my father's letter close, feeling as though some long-depleted well within me had finally begun to refill. The letter couldn't undo years of feeling secondary, couldn't instantly heal the rift with Vanessa, couldn't restore my privacy or erase the public scandal, but it offered something perhaps more valuable. Validation that my path, my choices, my very nature had always been enough. Outside, the late afternoon sun bathed the city in golden light. I walked to my car with straighter posture, lighter steps. For the first time in years, perhaps ever, I felt my father's approval not as something to earn, but as something I'd possessed all along. The week passed in a blur of normalcy and surreality. I returned to my classroom where my students treated me with a mixture of awe and awkward curiosity. The media attention gradually shifted to newer scandals, though occasional reporters still called seeking interviews. Elena Rodriguez and I met to discuss the citywide mural program, a genuinely exciting possibility for my students. Through it all, I carried my father's letter like a talisman, rereading it when doubts crept in or memories of the gala resurfaced. His words became a foundation, solid ground beneath my feet when everything else seemed unstable. Vanessa hadn't contacted me again. Jason had called once, leaving a terse voicemail about legal options that I promptly forwarded to Matthew Cole. But Lily texted daily, confirming that her violin recital was still scheduled for Saturday afternoon at the Scottsdale Community Arts Center. Mom says it's okay if you come, she wrote on Friday. But maybe sit in the back? I smiled at the phone, both hurt and amused by the conditional invitation. I'll be there, I promised. Front row or back row doesn't matter. I just want to hear you play. Saturday arrived with perfect desert autumn weather. Crisp morning air warming to pleasant sunshine by afternoon. I selected a simple blue dress and pearl earrings that had been a gift from my father, wanting to carry a piece of him with me. The Community Arts Center was modest compared to the Foundation's grand hall, a converted school building with good acoustics and affordable rental fees. I arrived 20 minutes early, taking a seat in the middle section, not hiding in the back but not imposing my presence in the front either. Families filtered in, programs in hand, excited children in formal attire fidgeting in their seats. I recognized several of Lily's classmates from previous recitals and school events. Their parents nodded politely in my direction, some with undisguised curiosity in their eyes. News traveled fast in Scottsdale circles. 10 minutes before the scheduled start, Vanessa appeared in the doorway with Jason and their 4 children. She wore a subdued navy dress, her makeup flawless but minimal compared to her usual style. Her pregnancy was more visible now, a gentle curve beneath the fabric. Our eyes met across the room. For a suspended moment, neither of us moved. Then she whispered something to Jason, handed him the younger children's hands, and made her way toward me while they found seats near the front. My pulse quickened as she approached. I steeled myself for confrontation, for whispered accusations or cold dismissal. Instead, she simply asked, "Is this seat taken?" Wordlessly, I shook my head. She sat beside me, arranging, her dress with practiced grace, her profile imperious as ever. Silence stretched between us, taut with unspoken words. The room continued filling around us, the ambient chatter creating a buffer of white noise. Finally, she spoke, her voice low. "Lily's playing Vivaldi. She's been practicing for weeks." "I know," I replied. "She's worked hard on the fingering for the Allegro movement." Another silence. "Thank you," Vanessa said suddenly, still staring straight ahead, "for not telling her about everything." I turned slightly toward her. "They're children, Vanessa. This isn't their burden to carry." She nodded almost imperceptibly. "The boys have been asking when you're coming over again. Even Jason noticed you missed Sunday dinner." The implicit question hung in the air. Would our routine resume? Could it resume after everything? "I've missed them," I admitted. "But not me," she said, a statement rather than a question. I considered lying, smoothing things over as I'd done countless times before, but my father's letter had changed something fundamental in me. "I've missed who we used to be," I said carefully. "Before the competition, before the resentment." Her hands tightened in her lap. "I never meant for things to go so far at the gala." It wasn't quite an apology, but from Vanessa, it was significant. "I know. The police were Jason's idea," she continued, voice barely audible. "He thought if we created enough doubt about your financial management, no one would look too closely at ours." The admission shocked me. "What do you mean?" Vanessa finally turned. To face me, her expression strained. "We're in trouble, Alyssa, serious trouble. Jason's last 3 investments failed. The house is mortgaged to the hilt. The cars are leased. My charity work is the only thing holding our social position together, and now even that's compromised." I stared at her, processing this revelation. "Why didn't you just tell me? Why the public accusation?" "Because it was easier than admitting I'd failed," she whispered, a tear slipping down her perfect cheek. "That I'd wasted everything Dad left me while you were so responsible, so perfect." The irony was almost painful. All these years I'd envied her glamorous life, her seeming success, while she'd apparently envied my financial stability. "I'm not perfect, Vanessa. I've just made different choices." She wiped away the tear with practiced discretion. "Well, those choices look pretty good right now. Meanwhile, I'm pregnant with our 5th child, facing social exile and potentially bankruptcy." Despite everything, I felt a flicker of compassion. Vanessa had always defined herself by external validation. Our father's approval, social status, material wealth. Losing these foundations threatened her entire identity. "What will you do?" I asked. "Jason's talking to investors. I'm selling some jewelry." She shrugged with forced nonchalance. "We'll manage. We always do." The lights dimmed, signaling the start of the recital. As the music teacher welcomed the audience, Vanessa leaned slightly toward me. "I read Dad's letter, you know. The one he left me." Her voice was so low I barely caught the words. "He said I should look to you as an example, that I'd always chased the wrong things." I held my breath, unsure how to respond. "I hated him for that," she continued, "for holding you up as the better daughter. But maybe he was right." Before I could answer, Lily appeared on stage with her violin. She looked so grown up in her formal black dress, her dark hair, so like Vanessa's, pulled back, in a neat bun. Her eyes scanned the audience nervously until she spotted us sitting together. Her expression brightened, and she stood a little straighter. As she began to play, the sweet, clear notes of Vivaldi filling the hall, Vanessa's hand found mine in the darkness. Her fingers trembled slightly, and I realized she was crying silently beside me. I squeezed her hand gently. Not forgiveness. Exactly. Not yet. But perhaps an opening, a possibility that whatever came next wouldn't be defined solely by hurt and accusation. Lily played beautifully, her technical precision blossoming into genuine musicality during the final movement. When she finished, the audience erupted in applause. Vanessa and I stood together, clapping until our palms stung, united at least in this moment of pride for the girl we both loved. After the recital, we stood awkwardly in the lobby as families congratulated their young musicians. "Will you come to dinner?" Vanessa asked suddenly. "Not today. I know it's too soon. But sometime?" I studied my sister's face, the familiar features that mirrored my own in some ways yet had always seemed to reflect a different light. Behind the perfect makeup, I saw something new, vulnerability, uncertainty, perhaps even regret. "Let's start smaller," I suggested. "Coffee, maybe. Just us." She nodded, relief softening her expression. "I'd like that." As I drove home that evening, the setting sun painting the mountains in shades of rose and gold, I thought about cycles broken and truths revealed. The road ahead with Vanessa would be neither straight nor smooth, but for the first time in years, it seemed possible that we might travel it as sisters rather than adversaries. My phone chimed with a text as I pulled into my apartment complex. It was from Lily. "Thanks for coming, Aunt Alyssa. Mom cried during my piece. She never cries at my recitals. Did you guys make up?" I smiled at her perceptiveness. "We're talking," I replied. "That's a good start." And it was a small step toward something new, something yet unnamed but tentatively hopeful. Not the neat resolution of a fairy tale, but the messy, complicated beginning of a genuine relationship built on truth rather than appearances. 3 weeks after Lily's recital, I sat across from Vanessa at a quiet cafe halfway between her Scottsdale mansion and my Phoenix apartment. Our third such meeting since the tentative truce we'd established, each one less strained than the last, though still far from comfortable. "I've been thinking about selling the Aspen property," Vanessa said, stirring her latte absently. Her pregnancy had advanced enough that strangers now noticed, occasionally offering congratulations that she accepted with a subdued version of her former radiance. "The ski house? But you love it." "There. We can't afford the maintenance anymore," she admitted, "and it's too far to visit regularly with the baby coming." I nodded, recognizing the significance of her sharing this financial vulnerability. Small steps, but meaningful ones. "How are the kids handling everything?" I asked. "Better than expected. Lily's become my confidant. She's so mature for 13. The boys are mostly oblivious, though Tyler asked why we canceled our summer Europe plans." Vanessa's smile turned wistful. "I told him we're exploring America instead. Made it sound like an adventure rather than a necessity." "Children are resilient," I offered, "and they value time with you more than fancy vacations." "That's what I'm trying to believe." She hesitated, then added, "Jason's moving out next week." I nearly choked on my tea. "What?" "Temporarily," she clarified. "He says he needs space to focus on rebuilding the business. But I think," her voice faltered, "I think he's embarrassed. He built his identity on being the successful provider, the perfect husband. Now that the facade's cracking, he doesn't know how to face us." I absorbed this information, unsure how to respond. My relationship with Jason had always been cordial but distant, underscored by moments of discomfort I'd never fully articulated. "I'm sorry," I said finally. "That must be difficult with the pregnancy and everything else." "Actually, it's clarifying," Vanessa said, surprising me. "For years, I've defined myself through his success, his approval. Now I'm seeing that maybe I need to find my own foundation." The words echoed my own journey so closely that I felt a flicker of genuine connection with my sister, perhaps the first authentic one in our adult lives. "That's incredibly self-aware, Vanessa." She smiled ruefully. "Therapy twice weekly will do that." Turns out when your life implodes publicly, mental health becomes a priority. Our conversation drifted to safer topics: Lily's upcoming school, concert, my students' latest art projects, Mom's adjustment to her new medication. As we prepared to leave, Vanessa suddenly reached across the table, gripping my wrist. "There's something else I need to tell you," she said, her expression tense. Something about Jason. My pulse quickened at her tone. What is it? She glanced around the cafe, then lowered her voice. Not here. Can you come to, the house tomorrow, around noon? The kids will be at school, and Jason has meetings in Tucson. Of course, I agreed, concern overriding our complicated history. Is everything okay? No, she said simply. But it will be better once you know the truth. The following day, I drove to Vanessa's Scottsdale mansion with mounting apprehension. The property looked subtly different. The elaborate, flower arrangements flanking the entrance were gone, the fountain in the circular driveway silent. Small signs of financial recalibration. Vanessa answered the door herself instead of the housekeeper who usually greeted visitors. She wore simple black leggings and an oversized sweater that softened her usual polished appearance. Without a word, she led me to her home office, a room I'd rarely entered, decorated with her charity awards and society photographs. I've been going through our financial records, she began, gesturing to papers spread across her desk, trying to understand exactly how we got here. I nodded encouragingly. At first, I thought it was just bad investments, bad luck. But then I found these. She handed me a folder labeled Hayes Trust Transfers. Inside were bank statements showing systematic withdrawals from an account labeled V. Hayes Trust Holdings to another account under J. Turner Ventures. Dozens of transactions over 3 years, depleting the balance until nothing remained. I don't understand, I said, though a terrible suspicion was forming. Jason had full access to my inheritance, Vanessa explained, her voice steadier than I expected. I trusted him completely with the financial management. He told me we were investing in real estate development, tech startups, growth opportunities. She pointed to another document, a property record for a condominium in Sedona. This is one of the investments, purchased with my trust money but titled solely in his name. There are 3 others like it, and a yacht in San Diego, and a collection of vintage cars stored in a warehouse I've never visited. The implications crashed over me. He stole from you. Not legally, I signed everything. But yes, he diverted my inheritance into assets for himself, hidden from our marital property. Her laugh was hollow, all while convincing me we were building our family's future together. I sat heavily in the visitor's chair, processing this revelation. Does he know you've discovered this? Not yet. I've been gathering evidence, consulting with a divorce attorney. She met my eyes directly. I wanted you to know first, because of what happened at the gala. Understanding dawned. The accusation that I stole from the trust, that was Jason's idea, wasn't it? She nodded, shame coloring her cheeks. He suggested it when I mentioned the rumors about our financial troubles, said we could create a diversion, shift attention from our problems to you. I was desperate enough to go along with it. Anger flashed through me, not just at Jason's manipulation, but at Vanessa's complicity. You let him use me as a scapegoat. I did, she admitted. No excuses, no deflection. I betrayed you to protect a life that was already built on lies. I can't undo that, Alyssa. But I can tell you the truth now, and I can try to make amends. The raw honesty in her voice disarmed me. This wasn't the Vanessa I knew, the sister who deflected blame, who maintained appearances at all costs. What will you do? I asked. File for divorce. Demand an accounting of all assets. Try to recover what I can for the children's future. She rested her hand protectively on her swollen belly. It won't be easy, especially with the baby coming. But I'd rather face hardship with integrity than continue living a beautiful lie. I studied my sister, really looked at her perhaps for the first time in years. Behind the perfect features so similar to my own, I saw genuine pain, genuine resolve, and something new, a quiet dignity that resonated with my own hard-won self-respect. I'll help however I can, I said finally. Tears spilled down Vanessa's cheeks. I don't deserve your support. Maybe not, I acknowledged. But that's what family is supposed to be. Not competition, not using each other, but supporting each other through the hardest moments. She wiped her eyes. I spent so many years feeling superior to you. My big house, my perfect family, my social status, and now I envy your little apartment, your independence, your peace of mind. Life isn't a zero-sum game, Vanessa. My success doesn't require your failure. Never did. She nodded slowly. Dad tried to tell me that. In his letter. He said I always looked outward for validation when I should have been building something solid within myself. Like you did. We're different people, I said gently. We always will be. But maybe we can stop seeing those differences as threats. Outside the window, clouds shifted, sending bars of sunlight across the room, illuminating the photographs of Vanessa's picture-perfect life, now revealed as an elaborate facade. Yet in the harsh light of truth, my sister seemed paradoxically more authentic than in all her polished society portraits. I'm scared, she confessed, of facing Jason, of raising 5 children essentially alone, of rebuilding from scratch at 35. You won't be alone, I promised. And for the first time since childhood, I reached for my sister's hand without reservation or resentment, offering not forgiveness exactly, but something perhaps more valuable: solidarity. A chance to begin again, not as the people we'd pretended to be, but as the women we might yet become. 6 months later, the Arizona spring painted the desert in unlikely blooms. Ocotillo flames, prickly pear blossoms, brittlebush yellows scattered across the landscape. Nature's reminder that beauty often emerges from the harshest conditions. I adjusted a framed photograph on my office wall at Phoenix Central High School, no longer just an art teacher, but now the newly appointed Director of Arts Integration, overseeing the citywide mural program that had expanded to 12 schools. The promotion had come with a modest salary increase and, more importantly, the opportunity to shape arts education across the district. My phone chimed with a text from Vanessa. We're here. Lobby or classroom? Classroom? I replied. Room 103. 15 minutes later, the door opened to reveal my sister cradling her 2-month-old daughter, Emma. Vanessa looked different now. Her designer clothes replaced by practical jeans and a simple blouse, her makeup minimal, her hair in a casual ponytail. The physical changes reflected deeper transformations beneath the surface. Sorry we're late, she said, settling into a student desk with practiced ease. Pediatrician appointment ran long. Emma's growing right on schedule. I smiled at my newest niece, her tiny features still unformed but suggesting the Hayes family resemblance. She's beautiful, I said, gently touching her downy head. How are you feeling? Tired, Vanessa admitted. But good tired, if that makes sense. Purposeful. The divorce proceedings had been finalized the previous month, messier than anticipated when Jason realized Vanessa had documented his financial deceptions. The settlement negotiation had been brutal, but ultimately revealed even more hidden assets than Vanessa had initially discovered. She'd emerged with enough to provide security for the children, though the mansion had been sold, replaced by a comfortable but modest home, closer to the children's schools. The realtor showed another couple through the Aspen house yesterday, Vanessa continued. Sounds promising. The proceeds would pay off the remaining legal fees and leave something for the college funds. I nodded encouragingly. That would be a relief. And the foundation board voted yesterday on the scholarship program, she added, a hint of her old animation, brightening her face. They approved it unanimously. This was Vanessa's new project, transforming her social connections into something meaningful. The Scottsdale Desert Arts Foundation, embarrassed by the scandal and eager for positive publicity, had embraced her proposal for an arts scholarship specifically for students from underserved communities. She'd insisted it be named not for the Turner or Hayes families, but for Phoenix Central's art students whose mural work had initially inspired the program. Your students deserve the recognition, she'd told me. I've had enough of seeing my name on plaques. When's the official announcement? I asked now. Next week. Small ceremony, no press. Just the scholarship committee, the selected students, and their families. She hesitated. I'd like you to speak, if you're willing, about the transformative power of art education. I'd be honored, I said sincerely. Emma began to fuss, and Vanessa rocked her automatically, a maternal rhythm she'd perfected over 5 children. Looking at her now, tired but centered, humbled but not defeated, I marveled at how adversity had revealed strengths in my sister I'd never recognized before. Have you heard from Jason? I asked carefully. She nodded. His lawyer called about adjusting the visitation schedule. Apparently, his new apartment in Tucson makes the weekly exchanges difficult. A shadow crossed her face. The boys miss him. Lily less so. She sees through him now. The legal battle had exposed Jason's character in ways that couldn't be undone. His attempts to hide assets, his manipulation of Vanessa throughout their marriage, his willingness to sacrifice anyone, including his children's aunt, to protect his image. Lily, perceptive beyond her years, had been particularly disillusioned. She still has you, I reminded her. All the children do. You're giving them something more valuable than the lifestyle they lost: integrity, resilience, truth. Vanessa smiled faintly. Mom said something similar when she visited last week, though she added that she never thought I'd be the one living modestly while raising 5 kids alone. You're not alone, I said automatically. I know. Her expression softened. Sunday dinners at your apartment, art projects with the kids, midnight calls when Emma won't sleep. You've been more present since everything fell apart than when we were supposedly close. It was true. Paradoxically, the public scandal and painful revelations had cleared away decades of pretense, competition, and resentment. What remained, what we were slowly building, was a relationship based on genuine support rather than obligation or comparison. I need to stop by the hospital after this, I said, changing subjects. Mom's having the follow-up tests today. Our mother's health had become another point of connection. Shared concern, shared responsibility, shared hope as her treatment showed promising results. Text me when you have the results, Vanessa requested. I'll bring dinner to her place tomorrow either way. Emma had fallen asleep against Vanessa's shoulder, tiny lips parted in perfect peace. Outside my classroom window, students crossed the courtyard, laughing and calling to each other beneath the vibrant mural my classes had created. Desert flowers emerging from cracked earth, beauty born from harshness. I spoke with Matthew Cole yesterday, I mentioned. The final trust documentation is complete. After everything settled, I decided to create a modest trust for each of Vanessa's children. College funds drawn from my remaining inheritance. Not enough to spoil them, but sufficient to offer security and opportunities. He said you listed me as trustee, Vanessa said quietly. After everything, you still trust me with money? I trust the person you are now, I clarified. The one who's learned the hard way what really matters. Tears shimmered in her eyes. I don't know if I'll ever feel I deserve your forgiveness. It's not about deserving, I said thoughtfully. Dad's letter helped me understand that. Worth isn't earned through perfection or success. It just is. Inherent, unchangeable. Like being sisters. For a moment, we sat in comfortable silence. So different from the tense, competitive quiet that had characterized our interactions for decades. No need to impress, to perform, to maintain. Appearances. Just 2 women shaped by shared blood and separate journeys, finding unexpected common ground in truth. I should get Emma home for her proper nap, Vanessa said eventually. Will we see you Sunday? Of course. I'm bringing that pasta salad the kids liked. As I walked them to the parking lot, no longer a luxury SUV but a practical minivan, I noticed how Vanessa moved differently now. Less concerned with how she appeared to others, more focused on the baby in her arms, the path beneath her feet, the moment exactly as it was. At her car, she turned suddenly. Do you remember that night at the gala, when everything fell apart? How could I forget? I've been thinking about it lately, she said, securing Emma in her car seat. Not the humiliation or the accusations, but the moment I saw you walk out. You looked so dignified, so sure of yourself. It made me furious at the time, but now I understand. It was the first time I'd seen the real you, not the version of you I'd created in my mind. I considered this. Maybe we both needed to see each other clearly, even if it took a public scandal to make it happen. Vanessa laughed softly. Not exactly the family therapy method I'd recommend, but effective. As she drove away, I remained in the parking lot, watching until the minivan disappeared. The journey from that disastrous gala night to this peaceful afternoon had been neither straight nor simple. There had been legal battles, painful truths, difficult adjustments. The relationship Vanessa and I were building now required constant attention, frequent forgiveness, ongoing honesty. Yet standing there in the spring sunshine, I felt a deep satisfaction that transcended the simplistic happy endings of childhood stories. Real restoration wasn't about erasing the past or pretending wounds had never existed. It was about building something new and authentic from the broken pieces, something that honored both the scars and the healing. That evening, I sat on my apartment balcony as twilight descended over Phoenix, painting the sky in watercolor blues and purples. On my lap lay my father's letter, the paper softened from frequent handling. I no longer needed to read the words. They had become part of me, a foundation upon which I'd built a stronger sense of self. My phone lit up with a text from Lily. Grandma's tests came back clear. Mom's crying happy tears. See you Sunday. Love you. I smiled, typing back my relief and love. Then I glanced at the simple bracelet on my wrist, a gift from Vanessa on my recent birthday. The engraved message caught the fading light. Worth is not what we own, but who we are. The desert darkness deepened around me, stars emerging one by one in the vast sky. Below, city lights twinkled like earthbound constellations, each one a separate story, a separate journey. I thought of my students finding their voices through art, of Vanessa rediscovering herself beyond wealth and status, of Emma beginning her life in a family remade by truth rather than appearances. Some might view my story as one of vindication, the moment when my sister's false accusations were publicly disproven, her carefully constructed image shattered while mine remained intact. But sitting there in the gathering night, I understood that the real victory hadn't been about proving her wrong or standing my ground in that dramatic confrontation. The true triumph lay in what came after, the slow, imperfect process of replacing facades with authenticity, competition with connection, resentment with compassion. Not a single, moment of public justice, but countless private moments of chosen kindness. Money fades, reputation fades, but dignity, once discovered, once embraced, shines brighter than any chandelier, illuminating not just our own path, but the way forward for those we love.